Alright guys, so today we got the Snell My Tour Ball BX. The MTBX, which replaced their old line. The thing that I like about this golf ball is that they're pretty direct with what they're trying to get out of it. So their core, a smaller core for increased...
Alright, let's get me out of there. Get me out of there. That was a good old golf ball review from the summer. Kind of just reminiscing from it. You know, give you guys a little pre-show before the show. All good stuff there. But we have the live video here for the Players Championship. This is some pretty exciting stuff, guys. Every shot, every golfer. And I don't know about you guys, but I already have made a bunch of builds just based off of groups so that I can watch every shot. One of the lineups that I put out there was Xander, Casey, and Hatton, just for the specific reason that I could just follow them the whole morning. And then I also did that for the afternoon wave. I put a bunch of lineups out there this week, but that was one of the lineup approaches I went with this week. Just kind of a fun thing to do. But I am pretty excited for this week. I hope you guys are as well. Frankie's in here. He's saying, let's get this money. I agree, man. I think it's going to be a good week. You know, at the start of the week, I was a little bit worried about it. And, you know, as the week has progressed, I feel like we really were able to zoom in on who the quality plays are going to be for this week. So overall, it's starting to look like it's going to be a good week. Last week was an interesting week in the fact that I never really felt comfortable with it. The whole week last week, I was kind of worried that one of the top end plays, whether it be Sam Burns or whether it be someone else, was gonna, you know, F over the player pool. For me last week, it ended up being Louis Oosthuizen. Withdrew before the event even started. He was a high exposure play for me last week. You know, he was pretty much the exact same play as Corey Connors, just a little bit better. I don't see anything like that happening this week. I think that this is going to be a much more predictable week as a whole. So we'll get into the plays for this week. So I do have a little bit of a different setup here for this week. I'm just kind of going to be going over plays that I think need to be talked about. If you guys have any specific questions about something else, definitely feel free to ask that. Always happy to help out, as you guys already know. So let's see here. So I do want to touch on Justin Thomas a little bit more because he is getting talked up a ton. And I get why he's getting talked up a ton, but also I don't think he should be chalk. I don't get why he is going to be chalk. So we just look at Xander right there. We look at JT right there, and then we look at Webb right there. We can just kind of look and see that JT is the worst option of those four. Okay, so for me, why would we pay up for Justin Thomas when we can get Bryson for slightly cheaper, when we can get an elite play like Webb for a lot, not a lot cheaper, but cheaper enough. And then we got Xander there as well, who's also going to be a quality play. So, you know, I get why JT is getting talked up, but I also just worry about him. We look at the recent form for JT. You know, that one miscut was bad. He did bounce back at the WGC event, but that was a WGC event. Everyone kind of thought he would bounce back. He did start off slow that event. That's kind of the worries, that he starts off slow again for really the second straight tournament. That's the worry with JT. And then Bryson, I do worry about him a little bit just coming off that win, but I don't get how JT's ended up as chalk. That's just my thing. Let's talk about Tony Finau. We got a question there from Charlie. What's going on, Charlie? So yeah, Tony Finau, I like him a lot as a play. I'm finding him hard to end up on though. Okay. And it's just kind of the week that we have. So for me, I would much rather play Cantlay. He's much safer. And I shouldn't say much safer because they're both in great recent form. Tony Finau he hasn't exactly fared well at this course. He didn't really play all too well in the first round last year. You know, 2 missed cuts and then a 57th and a 22nd place finish. Now, overall, this is a course where course history does matter, but this is a course or a tournament where the whole picture matters, where checking all the boxes matters the most. So, you know, if he does have good tournament history, you know, that's great. If a player does have good tournament history, that's great. But really what we're focusing on is the full aspect, the recent form, the course history, and the stat fit. You know, if those all align together, that's when this tournament has been the most predictable, is that when you find those players where they check all the boxes, that's where this tournament has been the most predictable. So, you know, the fact that he has okay course history. You know, it doesn't really bother me too much, but that would kind of be the reason to fade him. You know, obviously has great recent form, 14th, second, and a fourth, and then a 31st place finish. You know, overall, not a bad stat fit. You'd want him to be a little bit better for his current price point, but it's not bad at all. He's going to score on the par fives. He's not going to make many bogeys, and he's going to make a decent amount of birdies. You know, effective greens gained, 38. That's solid. Could be a little bit better putter. Could be a little bit better in effective drives gained. But overall, yeah, I expect good things out of Tony Finau. And simple. Like if you're ending up on him, I'm perfectly fine with it. Personally, I have him in my player pool. I just didn't end up on him as much as I did Webb. Webb is an elite play. Patrick Cantlay, I like a little bit more. And then Colin Morikawa and Victor Hovland, I'm really hanging my hat on their first rounds of last year where they both went low, where they both shot -4. Probably not the right thing, honestly, because we know the cut sweat is a 2-round event there. One of those guys could have easily missed the cut with a bad round 2. And everyone was kind of mentally a little bit different, I guess, if you will, in that first round last year. It's kind of when the waves of, I guess, a possible shutdown started to come through. And I don't know how much we should factor in round 1 last year. You know, if a guy played well, that's great. If he didn't play well, oh well, I guess. Yeah, overall, I like Tony Finau as a play. Can you break down Fleetwood? So yeah, Tommy Fleetwood, to me, he's at a great price point. And if you end up on him, kind of like Finau, I'm not going to blame you. There's a lot of great plays this week. But personally for me, I didn't end up on Tommy Fleetwood all too much. 7.9, you know, it's a fine price point. For me this week, that was kind of just a dead range. I really didn't end up in the like 8.2 to like 7.8 range, which is great because I ended up on, you know, the easy play of Jason Kokrak a lot more, and like, you know, a little bit of Zalatoris, a little bit of Homa, a little bit of Answer. So it's kind of nice that I didn't have to worry about that price point range at all, but you guys can see, not the best stat fit with Tommy Fleetwood. You know, didn't play that well at the WGC event, played well at the API, course history wise, 41st, 7th, and 5th place finish. That's obviously great, but see, this is where I go back to, you want a player that's doing well in all facets of what we want to look for in terms of PGA DFS, in terms of predicting PGA DFS. He's not exactly doing that this week. I do worry about his stat fit, but if you're hanging your hat on course history average and his recent form average, I'm okay with that. Obviously, he's a world-class player. We all expect him to make the cut. It's just how much are we going to get out of him? Is it going to be a top 40? Then you probably don't want to play him. If you think it's going to be a top 20, then go for it. I think there's better plays, though. A lot of water, JT not driving well. See, that's the thing with JT. It's that, you know, he could easily struggle in round 1. He could shoot himself out of it in the first round. And that's kind of it. JT is just a matter of how many rounds can we get out of him that week. Because if it's going to be 4, yeah, we know he's going to eventually go off. If it might be 2, you know, then we worry about it. DJ Answer or Xander Schauffele. Xander and Scheffler. All right, let's do a comparison here. So DJ and Xander, or DJ and Answer. So Abraham Answer, I'm getting on him more because, real quick on Abraham Answer, I kind of forgot about what happened with this miscut. It's the Florida thing, the Texas thing, where he couldn't leave his apartment or his house or wherever he was living. He got there at the tournament without a practice round in at all and just played. So we kind of just X off that miscut there. And then he had great recent form other than that, you know, 3 straight top 20 finishes. So that's not bad. So not bad for these two, but we'll also compare Xander and who was the other one? Scheffler. So I can tell you right now, I'm definitely digging Xander and Scheffler a little bit better. You get a little bit more upside, actually a lot more upside. Might lose a little bit of safety, but overall I like it a ton. So just comparing the 4, Xander, slightly better play than DJ by 1. I agree that DJ should be the most expensive player on the slate, but personally I couldn't end up on him all that much. Really not horrible course history. Recent form, you know, it's fine. Played horrible at the WGC event, but that's kind of the thing with WGC events. If a guy doesn't play well at a WGC event, well, oh well, because who knows? They might have been trying to work on something. They might have just not cared if they had a bad round 1. And I don't want to put thoughts into DJ's head, but if you're watching the coverage, well, it's tough to say because DJ always looks this way, but it did seem like he cared a little bit less. But yeah, I'm much rather favoring Xander and Scotty here just because of the upside, just because of their stat rank. 6th for Scotty Scheffler, 7th for Xander. That is something that I like a ton there. Answer's fine, but you can see it there. I'm chasing the upside with Scotty and Xander there. Kind of likely that those two, if one of those two plays well, the other one should play well technically because they're both very similar stat fits. Answer, you're just expecting to make the cut and you want DJ to pay off more than Xander would, and I just don't see that happening this week. Both good plays, or both combos of that group are both good plays. Any love for Munoz? So Sebastian Munoz, I just didn't end up on all too much this week. I'm fine with him. There's just better plays at his price point range. So one of those players here, do I have to say it? Chris Kirk. I'd much rather play Chris Kirk. 42nd in the model, that could have been better, but overall 42nd in the stat rank model there. Overall in the model though, he was 20th. So, I like Chris Kirk a lot better. I see no real reason to really go down that low unless you're paying Chris Kirk. Other than that, I don't want to play Munoz too much. I looked at Cantley as well, but doesn't have shot course history. I don't know what I didn't read that. What is it? Doesn't have short course history. So course history, it's fine for Patrick Cantley there. All right. Do you think Brian Harman is a good DK cash play this week? It really depends on the rest of your build there, Carter, because he is, in the sense, if you love the rest of your build, if you have 5 players in there that you're like, yes, these guys are all going to make the cut, I feel good about it, got some upside with these guys, most likely 2 of them are going to top 10, one of those 2 could easily contend, then yes, I like Brian Harman as a cash play. If you're kind of being more risky, then no, because then you're bringing in, potentially a couple more miscuts. It really depends on your build, but you can see here, 37th in the model, that projects out well. Overall stat rank though, 52nd. Course history average rank, or course history average here in the last 4 years, 53rd. That's okay. Overall, it's telling me that he should be, about a stroke inside of the cut line, but it is probably going to be a cut sweat with Brian Harman. Look at his stats. He hasn't really been playing well this year. He's just been having rounds where he figures it out. He's been getting it done. And that's kind of the thing, is that he hasn't really had one thing that's carrying his golf game throughout the whole year. It's kind of just figuring out what works that week and going on from there. So I don't mind Brian Harman. If you're ending up on him, I'm perfectly fine with him. Hey, what's up, Kicks? How you doing, man? You got your dad watching me as well. That is awesome. Actually, it's kind of crazy. So like the whole last 2 years, my age group of viewers has been 20-ish to 35. And over the past, really since the 2021 new year, it's been both that age group, and now it's been 35 to also 50, which is pretty awesome as well. So 9 to 5's age group has expanded. Maybe it's a little bit due to people like Kicks telling their dad to come out and watch. Do it if that's you guys as well. Share the information, guys. We're all just a community trying to help everyone. So the more we can help, the better it is for everyone. All right, is Horschel a chalky play? God, I hope not. No, Horschel's not a chalky play. Get out of here. He just had a horrible miscut. Dougie, there is no way that Billy Horschel is a chalky play. So personally, I don't want to give my ownership spiel, but I will real quick. I really don't like to look at ownership, especially at events like this where there's a ton of great plays. Your concentration on a week like this should just be focusing on the best plays and making your best lineup. It's just ownership doesn't matter when the player pool is this strong on DraftKings, when everyone is kind of a good play given their price points. You just don't have to worry about it, because if you start worrying about that, you're going to make some dumb lineup decisions. You got to concentrate on your lineup. If you want to adjust someone out that might be chalky, in one of your builds, that's fine. But Billy Horschel should not be chalk. If he is, that's kind of crazy to me. 77th here, 40th in the model. Not great enough. I just don't see how he ends up would end up being chalky, honestly. 36 in the stat rank. Course history is fine. That actually is not bad. We think about Billy Horschel. This is a course that he should play well at. And Billy Horschel typically is not a good stat rank play. He's kind of like JT in that matter, although JT is a good stat rank play this week. But typically those are guys who they can, just go out and play well on any course. They kind of are a chameleon where they can kind of transform their game into whatever that course needs. But yeah, how would Billy Horschel be chalk? So I'm just curious, like what? We got Neiman there, we got Jason Kokrak there, we got Zatoris, we got Homa, Oosthuizen, and even Fleetwood, Cameron Smith. There's no way that Billy Horschel becomes chalk because we just look at it. He's the worst play at that price point range. And I'm not saying that he's not going to play well, but I'm saying I just don't see how anyone would end up on him as chalk. Who should be chalk? It should be Jason Kokrak. I don't think it will be, but he should be. In like GPPs, I could see Zalatoris having a higher GPP ownership because he should. And I could see, Neiman and Oosthuizen potentially having higher GPP ownerships as well because, well, they should. For GPPs, you're shooting for that upside. All those guys present that where, Billy Horschel, you would just be playing him to potentially get a made cut. And I just don't see it with him. That's kind of crazy to me if he does become chalk. Hovland or Morikawa in cash games. Chris, I think you might have commented this like an hour ago as well. Apologize. I was getting the live stream ready. But yeah, for me, it's going to be Morikawa. And I've struggled with this. To me, this is going to be the make or break point is that salary price point range. Actually, I'm going to pull it up here on the other cheat sheet here on 95 real quick. Give it some time to load. I'll pull up both of those two to compare before I really switch over. So Victor Hovland and Collin Morikawa here. We can see they're very similar plays, and they're both guys that really played well in round one last year at this tournament. So they don't have any course history here. We can see that. But they did play that one round. They both shot -4 in round one last year. That's a good sign. We look at kind of their recent form. Both great, okay? Victor Hovland. See, this is weird. If he didn't have that bad weekend, I probably would be on him a lot more than I am this week. And I'm not saying that's the right call. But it did happen. He did have a horrible week and he couldn't kind of put it together. I like them both. But for me, it's going to be Collin Morikawa just a little bit more, I guess, upside with him. I just feel like he has the stronger mentality out of the two, where if it comes, I expect both to make the cut. I should make that clear. But when it comes to like a Sunday push, if they're both in contention, I think Morikawa has that mentality to go out and win. Where Hovland, I just don't see that happening. I don't know. You ever watch him on a Sunday final round that isn't a alternate event? He just isn't like grinding it out. I don't know. He's enjoying it too much. He's enjoying it like I'm enjoying this live stream too much. You can't have that when you're trying to close out a tournament there. That's just kind of Hovland. But yeah, going back to what I was trying to say there, with that 9K price point range, guys, I've been struggling to like decide between this range. Like they're all quality plays, really. Maybe besides Patrick Reed, and I'm fine with Patrick Reed. They're all quality plays here. And it's kind of the make or break point this week is like choosing the correct plays at that price point range. Now, obviously, Webb Simpson's kind of like the easy play in that price point range, but Collin Morikawa, Victor Hovland, they're both going to be quality plays. They're both likely to make the cut. All of these guys here are likely to make the cut. Really just deciding between that price point range and that price point range, I really do think will be the make or break point this week as a whole. So let's see here, trying to get caught up. How you feeling about Russell Henley? Russell Henley, I like a ton for GPPs. Perfectly good with Russell Henley, actually. The guy has been an interesting play this whole year. Top 10 stat rank play. He's been a top 10 stat rank play pretty much every tournament this year. That's pretty much due to how well he's been hitting the ball. If we're looking at stats this week, that's what we want to be looking at. We want to be looking at those players that are in control of their golf ball striking, effective drives gained, and effective greens gained. That's what we want to be looking at. Not making many bogeys. He's birdie to bogey ratio is top 3. Strokes gained total 7th. We look at his course history, not the best, but this is kind of where I go back to the bigger point is that course history matters, but also we got to look at the bigger picture where, if he goes out and does have a good tournament, it's not going to be that shocking, even though he does have bad tournament history. Like typically I would fade him, but relatively good recent form, good stat fit. I could see him going out and popping. This is like Corey Connors last week, where Corey Connors last week he was a top 18 stat fit. Wasn't a good, or he was in okay recent form, pretty good actually, but one miscut, and then he didn't have good course history. It's kind of what we got with Russell Henley here. So on Yahoo, I haven't pulled it up yet, Grizz. I'm sorry. I haven't pulled it up on Yahoo. I apologize. I haven't been able to look at that price point range just yet on Yahoo. Who are my fades? So I posted a video on this yesterday. It was the first time I did that. I typically hate doing that content, but this is a week where there is a lot more content out there. And with that, it's not, I don't want to say it's bad content, but a lot of it is just content for content's sake. And typically I don't like to do that just because, my job is to really give you guys the best plays. And that's what I try to do on the Monday video, the core plays video. And it's kind of redundant for me to say someone isn't a good play, but I can kind of go over it. This week, it's a little bit different if you were to fade some people. So I decided to fade JT and I decided to fade Bryson. JT is it seems like he's going to be chalky, and I don't necessarily agree that he should be kind of the most owned player. And, he's a fine play. If you end up on him, you end up on him. That's whatever. I'm fine with it. Bryson, I'm just fading him coming off of that victory. I do worry about him. Players just coming off of a victory do tend to struggle. It's kind of the mental aspect of it. Grinding out a victory on Sunday. You got a little bit more media time the following week. And obviously your week's just shortened a little bit. Now, if there's anyone that can do it, we know Bryson can do it, but I just decided to fade him. And then we look at someone like Matthew Fitzpatrick, decided to fade him. Great recent form. Not the best stat fit, but that's kind of what we expect from him. Okay course history as well. Just nothing great. He's a guy that holds some name value. Good price point for a guy in great recent form. I just couldn't play him that much. Justin Rose. We haven't really got that much news on Justin Rose after he withdrew. It's kind of weird. Honestly, guys, my kind of dream job here would be to be able to go around to every golf tournament and, kind of be that on-site reporter for, I guess, injuries or for form. Like, oh, this guy sucked on the range. That's kind of my dream job. And maybe I'm a year away from that. That'd be pretty awesome. I would love to do that. But that's something where Justin Rose, I could be like, oh, yeah, he's definitely actually injured, or he was just pissed off at himself and he's not injured. That is something that I would love to be able to see. But yeah, I'm fading him. Fading Ricky, which, all of us in here probably know to fade Ricky, but some people might not know that. That's kind of it. This is not a week where I'm directly fading anyone. It's just more or less I'm choosing the better options in those price point ranges. And that's kind of how I think PGA should be, is just playing the best plays possible. Not really fading people. I have 5 super chalk plays. Neiman, Zalatoris, then 3 safe 9Ks. Thanks, Carter. Appreciate it. Not really sure. Is that a statement, I'm guessing? Once again, I don't think you should worry about chalk too much. If you like your lineup, stick with it. Don't worry about ownership. Because if you like your lineup, chances are you like it for a reason, and it's going to hit if that's the case. If you did your research and you feel good about it, just stick with the lineup. Too many times people worry about ownership and just make a bad lineup decision, and it just bothers me. Westwood under the radar. Westwood, I didn't end up on him. If you do, you do. Let's see. I don't want to say don't play him, but I'm not, if that helps. Cameron Tringale in that same price point range, I like a little bit more. Heck, Matt Kuchar has good course history compared to him. Heck, Ian Poulter has good course history compared to him. Those are 2 guys where I maybe want to favor a little bit more, that have somewhat similar recent form. When you're getting that low with those name value plays, you're kind of just paying for name value there. Kind of just talking about that, I do want to pull up someone that was 500 to 1 this week on DK Sportsbook. That is going to be Michael Thompson here, guys. So not the best stat fit, but we look at his recent form. Miscut, played well at Pebble, miscut at the Waste Management, and then a 5th, 25th, and then 21st. So really not bad. 1, 2, 3, 4 top 35 finishes over his last, 6 starts. Okay course history. I mean, not great. I don't know. I kind of like him just as a gut flyer play. 1% ownership, 2% ownership if you're doing max entries. Kind of like it a little bit. I don't know why. All right, let's see here. How are we feeling about Perez? Pat Perez. Oh boy. So I love these questions that I get on a player, and I don't even realize that they're in the field. I mean, that tells you how I feel about him. So yeah, just not looking good for Pat Perez. So don't play him. Pretty as simple as that. So yeah, honestly, guys, I didn't even look at anyone cheap this week. The cheapest I looked was like Thompson and was Andrew Putnam, for example. Putnam is in great recent form. You know, I struggle playing Jordan Spieth this week because I can get Jordan Spieth. What's the meme? The little kid asked at a store, "Hey mom, can we get Jordan Spieth?" And then mom says, "Hey, we have Jordan Spieth at home," and it ends up being Andrew Putnam. Yeah, that's what we got this week because Andrew Putnam, 21st, 7th, 55th, 5th, 32nd, and a 4th place finish. You know, that's Jordan Spieth. That's exactly what he's been doing, just without the name value and without the insanely lucky but talented shots. I love Jordan Spieth. But I mean, that's kind of a struggle there. All right, going back to Burns this week. Your thoughts on Burns? I'm fine with it. I won't go crazy with it. He's a good stat fit, obviously. And this is where these younger players, I always worry about them getting talked up because it's like added pressure, I think, to them. I think they notice this stuff, this younger generation. I think they notice this stuff when they're getting talked up. Obviously, they're on social media. They're probably watching the Golf Channel and whatnot. They see themselves getting talked up. And I feel like it just provides more pressure for them on each shot. You know, we saw him make, 3 or 4 double bogeys last week where I just typically we don't see that with him. You know, he's 34th in birdie to bogey ratio, which dropped off a lot from last week. Actually, we saw him do stuff that he typically doesn't do. And, you know, I think it's just one of those things where you're getting talked up a lot and the mentality is just a little bit different because you're worried about letting people down. You're getting a little bit of extra stress put on yourself and you compound your mistakes there. So all in all, yeah, I don't mind Sam Burns. Obviously, it's a first-time player. I do want to see at least some course history, but, you know, top 10 stat rank play, you know, that's going to be someone where if he goes off and plays well, not going to be all too shocking. Recent form-wise, not bad. Not bad. I'm good with it. If you end up on him, you end up on him. I'm fine with it. All right. What do you think about Kirk? I love Kirk as a play. Good price point for him. You know, played well at this course in the past. Not the best stat fit, but overall at 7K to get a play like that, I absolutely like him as a play. Gonna have a lot of Chris Kirk this week. Does flower price intrigue you? No. So honestly, shout out to DraftKings for finally pricing name value plays correctly. For years, it was so painful seeing these players like Ricky, who are not playing well, be priced at like 8K or 7.9, where you wouldn't even think about it. But like, who's asking it? Forget who asked it now, but like at least it's a question nowadays. Like I like that, but we're looking at his course history, still not overly that good recently. You look at his recent form. Yes, he has been grinding out made cuts, so we do like to see that. And he's a guy where I do expect to have a cut sweat, and he might be able to find magic here. I'm not trusting it for Ricky this week, and I'm not sure that you should either. There's other good plays in this price point range, so there's no need to really risk it. What do you buy into the correlation of players doing well at Pete Diet courses? Yes and no. It's fine if they do. You know, it's like a cherry on top there, Dougie. For me, it's more or less just finding players that are checking all the boxes this week. There's no real reason to look at correlation stats or correlation courses this week because we have the course data already. You know, so whenever you want to put up like a correlation course, it's really, you're doing that for the reason of trying to find players that would fit that course that we're coming into. So whenever we see a new event like we have kind of with the workday, the 2 workday events, well, one of them we've seen for years, I guess. That's not a good example, but the most recent workday event, new course. So if you did comp courses at the WGC event, that would make more sense because you're trying to gain an edge there. You're trying to kind of find that course history, I guess, if you will, of who would play well at this course. What stats should we be looking at for this course? We already know what that is this week. We know what stats to be looking at. We know what type of players play well at here. Course history is here. We got the recent form. We got the stats. So yeah, if you want to look at it, you can. Kind of just the cherry on top if you're looking at something like that. Shouldn't be a deciding factor for you other than maybe a 50-50 decision maker for you. But overall, you should be concentrating on really a player that's checking all the boxes. Favorite play from 8.8 to 9.2. 8.8 to 9.2. Is this it? All right. Yep. Patrick Henley there for you. I already touched on him a little bit. I like him as a play a lot. He's top 6 in the model. Feel really good about him. And actually, I kind of tweeted that out, I believe. Let me just pull up that tweet, actually, if I can real quick. I got to pull up the graphics games for you guys there. I mean, look at this graphic there. Yeah, so I ended up on Jesse Colcrack, Patrick Henley, and Webb Simpson kind of the most this week. So, yeah, Patrick Henley, top 6 in the model. I feel really good about Henley as a play. If you guys haven't followed the Twitter page, lots of good graphics there. Kind of just a bunch of, solid content. Don't like to fill it up with fluff, as you guys already know. Let's see here. Trying to get caught up on questions here. How do I know how much ownership to put on a golfer for? Okay. So for me personally, whenever I'm making my player pool, which consists of, it depends on the week. It's like 20 to, I never want to go over 40. 40 is really pushing a threshold there. Let me get some water. Don't judge the gallon. So for me, like 20 to like 35 is the max that I want to go for really my player pool. So I typically have like 4 to 5 core plays. Those guys are going to range from 30% to 40%. It really depends on the play and it depends on the week. So for me this week, I love Webb Simpson. I feel strongly about Webb Simpson as a play. I bumped that threshold up to right around 45%. If you're entering a lot of lineups, don't want to go crazy with it. Now, if you're entering 20 or so lineups, then you bump up that ownership threshold a little bit more to about 60% or so, because obviously you're playing less lineups, which means you have to kind of figure out who your top players are and really just nail in those players. If you're doing 20 lineups, you should be entering those lineups with your main lineup and then entering them out one at a time. So you really shouldn't be worried about ownership if you're doing 20 lineups, because you're really just worrying about trying to make the correct builds. I guess, what am I trying to say here now? You're trying to get the correct match in builds in there. So if you edit them one at a time with that 20 entry max, then you're doing well. But for 150 lineups, which I've been doing a lot more, yes, core plays, 4 to 5 of them, 30 to 40%. After that, I have high exposure plays, which typically are around 5 of them as well. Those guys would range from pretty much 30%. And then mid exposure plays are going to be like 20%, low exposure plays like 10%, and then I'll have some value plays that are going to be like 5%, depending on the week. And that's kind of just how it goes. Some weeks, there's going to be more high-end plays that you want to be on, where like Rory, DJ, Rom, I threw in about 5% of lineups because I didn't want to fade them. You can't be fading those guys. Even like Justin Thomas, I threw in about 2% of lineups because I don't want to fade him outright. So it's really up to you, but that's kind of the approach that I go with. And it's been pretty solid so far, especially with the new lineup generator on 9 to 5 Sports. I don't know if you guys know this, but it's there. It's a pretty easy tool. Been very successful thus far for me personally. I'll show you guys my usage reports so far. So this is kind of what I did. This isn't the one I ended up on. I switched a little bit, but this is kind of my usage report from my 150 max. You guys can kind of see these are my ownerships there. So kind of get a good picture of that. I might adjust that as the week goes on. I might not, but this tool is pretty simple to use in that sense. Like, I don't know, let's just do a quick example. So like Webb Simpson, we love as a play. want to lock him into around, 45%. Boom. Put him in there. Patrick Henley, you guys know I like. Lock him into around 45%. Boom. Well, maybe not that. Let's not go crazy. 40. Okay. And then Jason Kolcrack was the other one. Lock him into, well, let's say 40. Those are the 3 core plays then this week, if you will. Then, well, I don't want to do 100. I don't want to do 100% max ownership. The rest will be 35. And then boom, you get a lineup like that. You get 20 lineups just like that. You're good to go. Look at the usage report. Got Webb at 45. We got Neiman pulling up there a lot. Zalatoris. Yeah, so these two are popping a lot on the lineup builder because if they make the cut, that means they're playing great golf. That means they're continuing to play their good golf. So that means they're going to go low. So that makes sense. It's kind of just the easy way to use it. All right, so let's get caught up again. Sorry. I just took a deep dive there. It felt good to do that deep dive, though. Your thoughts on Adam Scott? So, yeah, Adam Scott, I do like his course history a ton. I wish he was like $200 cheaper. It's just, I said this earlier, kind of the reason why I'm not on a player like Adam Scott is just simply the fact that I haven't been ending up in that price point range, thankfully, because I don't exactly love Fitzpatrick. Scott, I'm fine with. Jason Day, I'm fine with. Cam Smith, I'm fine with. Tommy Fleetwood, I'm fine with. But I've more or less just been ending up, thankfully, with 7.7 rather than like 8.1. So yeah, he actually has the best course history over the last 4 years here, which, most significant last 4 years. That's why we look at it. So I kind of expect him to make the cut. And with Adam Scott, typically plays in a little bit tougher events. So he's not going to be the best stat fit, although 95th, that is a worry. It's a worry that he's 95th. You'd want him to at least still be top 60. So, kind of like Brian Harmon, he's at least been finding ways to make the cut. Of course, that he's played well at, he's most likely going to make the cut. And then, you're just really hoping for a top 20 finish from him. I think anything more than that, you're kind of just hoping to get lucky. Maybe a top 20 is good. Molinari week, no, not for me. I can't go back to him last week. He burned me last week. Can't go back to him. Touch on Lanto. So Lanto Griffin, this is a good Twitter opportunity as well. Lanto Griffin. This is where following someone like Lanto pays off. So playing at my home course, and actually this is where the 9 to 5 Discord chat came in clutch. One of the members pointed out an article to me on PGA Tour saying that him and Vijay Singh played a lot. It was actually a pretty sweet article. So they played this course a lot over the past year pretty much. So it kind of is his home course. He's playing good golf. I'll pull him up here on the cheat sheet for you. And this is someone that I've definitely got on a little bit more now. 7.3 feels good. So he doesn't have that course history, but we don't have to worry about that too much. It could be a better stat rank, 36 in the model, but for that price point, 36 in the model is pretty darn good. Recent form-wise, pretty good. I really do like Lanto Griffin as a play at 7.3, especially given the fact that this is his home course. I'm good with that. I'm doing 8 lineups, some 3 max entries and some single. So single entry lineups just really focus on, go with the approach that I said. You make one main build and then just edit those out like one at a time, kind of fading the player that you are least confident in. So, I guess I don't have a good example for that really, but I guess, sure. If you end up on like Hatton and Casey as your last 2 in your build, for one of the builds, put in Casey, then for the other build, put in Hatton, kind of edit it that way. How does Tony Finau in the stat rank? Top 19 there for Tony Finau. Perfectly fine with Tony Finau as a play. If you end up on him, I'm good with it. He's kind of a shoulder shrug play for me this week. Do you change your thoughts when you jump between DK FanDuel? So, Michael, yes and no. So for FanDuel, I love FanDuel because you can typically fit one more stud in there. So with FanDuel, I am a little bit more, I guess, risky, if you will, because their pricing's a little bit softer in the sense that you can pretty much put the core plays and put the top plays from DraftKings in a lineup on FanDuel, and then you're going to end up on a player that's like $1,000 cheaper on FanDuel. So it makes the lineup process a lot easier on FanDuel. So yeah, I typically make my FanDuel lineups after I do DraftKings, because then the lineup process becomes a lot easier. I remember 3 weeks ago, I pretty much gave you guys the nuts lineup for FanDuel. I forget what tournament that was now. What tournament was that? Was it Pebble Beach? Might have been Pebble. I forget. But there's 5 players in the top 10 that week. And the lineup process just becomes easier when you do that, because, I mean, it depends on which one is your main, I guess, outlet. If your main outlet is FanDuel, then make your DraftKings lineup last, because you're focusing on FanDuel the most. Then the top plays for DraftKings are going to stick out a little bit more. But I like doing it DraftKings and then FanDuel because it's much easier to find out the lineup process. Anything on Cameron Champ? Yeah, Cameron Champ just needs to play better. Dude sucks. And he's pissing me off now, because he played great in the fall and people loved him in the fall. I loved him in the fall, and now he's just falling off. And that's exactly what it is. Cameron Champ needs to figure out his last name, get back to that, start playing well. Just lost. His game's completely lost right now. Sucks. Oh geez, the Lucas Glover comment, that's funny. Also, I feel bad for Lucas Glover. He was actually one of the players that I played a ton throughout the years, because he was always too cheap. You know, he was an easy kind of free square over the years, just in any tournament. He's not playing well right now. So really hoping that my boy Steve Stricker would get in the field as like the last alternate in the event. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. But how crazy is this, guys? A full calendar year later. I remember making the live video last year, being really pumped up for round 1. Woke up early, watched Johnny Vigo, though, who was a player that I ended up on in the main build. He was 6.3 on DraftKings last year. Shot -2, was comfortably inside the cut line. Hideki was in first place, who was in my main build. And then it was like Webb and Berger, who were also in my main build. It was looking like it was going to be like my best week ever. And then we know what happened. It was crazy. It's kind of surreal that we're already back here. It seems like forever ago, but it also feels like yesterday. I'm so excited to watch golf again this week, and I hope you guys are too. It's gonna be a fun time. But I'm gonna be closing up here shortly. If you guys don't have any questions here, gonna be closing up here in about 5 minutes or so, maybe less than that, depending on the questions. Get a water break here. Then we'll be good. Pull up the tools here real quick as well. If you guys haven't, you can take a peek at the 9 to 5 page. Quality stuff, $10 a month. Don't want to say you're losing money by not being a member, but it does help a lot. My whole spiel is to make it simple for you guys, and that's my goal. And I think I do that. $10 a month, The thing that I dislike is that when I was starting out in PGA DFS and fantasy golf, is that you had to pay these premium prices for, edge, to gain the edge in PGA DFS, which I do think you need. You need the data and, whatnot. But like, it was $40 a month, $30 a month, $25 a month. And I just wasn't comfortable with that. I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And, I think I found that out here. But it doesn't look like we have any more questions here, guys. So I will be getting out of here. I hope that you guys had a good Players Championship. I know I'm excited for it. Definitely getting up early. Once again, just for the sake of fun, make one of your lineups with a player in that, or with 3 players in one group. So for me, I went with Terrell Henn, Paul Casey, and Xander Schauffele in one lineup on DraftKings, so that I can watch every shot for those 3 golfers. Just because it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch those 3. And honestly, they are all quality plays this week, so I don't mind it. Thompson is min on FanDuel. He's pretty much min on DraftKings. I mean, don't go crazy with it, but call it a gut play, if you will. I don't mind him. I could see him doing something. Like, it's not going to shock me if he does well. All right, thanks for watching, guys. And as always, let's keep cashing.